Hello students, let us start the second part in the first chapter, management skills. So already we have started the first chapter, so that is management skills from the subject organizational management and entrepreneurship. So this is the second part. So we start with what do you mean by leadership and what are the styles of leaderships or types of leaders. So to whom you call it as a leader or leadership. So basically leadership can be defined as the process of influencing the subordinates so that they cooperate enthusiastically in the achievement of group goals effectively and efficiently. So that is what a leadership basically. There are different styles of leadership or the types of leaders. So first one is autocratic leaders, second democratic leaders, third one is persuasive leaders, fourth one is functional leaders, fifth one is free rein leaders. So let us discuss one by one all the types of leaders. So first one is autocratic leaders. So this type of leaders lead their group through command and by developing faith in their followers. Such leaders give orders, assign duties and responsibilities without consulting the employees or caring for their opinion. As you might have known, there are certain leaders, uh, what they will do is they will lead their team through their commands and by developing some faith in their followers. So such leaders, they will give orders and some assign some duties or responsibilities without asking the employees, right? So such leaders, they are called autocratic leaders. And second one is democratic leaders. So these leaders always work according to the wishes of their followers, right? If their followers say something, so these leaders simply they follow the same thing what the followers has said. So they are called what? Democratic leaders. And third one is persuasive leaders. So such leaders influence their followers due to his personal contact to join with him in getting things done. He gives directions personally and whole of the gang responds to his call because they love and respect him and have full confidence in him. So that is such leaders, they are called persuasive leaders. And fourth one is functional leaders. So such leaders lead because of their expert knowledge and win the confidence of their followers by their superior knowledge. And last one is free rein leaders. So such leaders does not lead but leaves the group entirely to itself. So such leaders use little power and gives a high degree of independence in their working. So these leaders are dependent on subordinates to set their own goals. So let us discuss what are the qualities of a good leader. So already we have seen what is leadership and what are the types of leaders. So next we are going to see what are the qualities a leader should have. So first one is intelligence and technical knowledge. A good leader must have an intelligence which is more than that of his followers. He must be able to understand and solve the problem in accordance with the situation. He must have what? More intelligence and technical knowledge than his followers. Second one is he must be a initiative. So that is he must initiate good activities and must be capable of taking initiative. And third one is decisiveness. So that is what one of the important quality of a leader. So a leader must be able to make proper decisions at proper time and must stick to it, as lack of decisiveness results in the loss of efficiency. Generally, ability to decide comes from self confidence. Good leader must have a decision making capability. So that is the third point. And fourth one is ability to inspire. A leader cannot do whole of the work himself. He has to inspire his men so as to get the work done from them. And fifth one is responsibility. So a leader must be able to know and feel his responsibilities. He must be in a position to take the burden of decisions on his shoulders. And sixth one is social concern. So that he must always realize that he is dealing with human beings who are also having feelings of social status and sense of respect. Seventh one is adjustable to changing conditions. These are what some of the qualities a good leader must have. So apart from this, there are so many qualities like uh, a good leader must be a open mindedness, then he must have a good health, then a good leader must have the knowledge of human relations, then a good leader must have a good communication skills, and he must have good teaching ability, and he must have a good attitude, and he must be a creative thinker. All these are what the qualities of a good leader. So next we are going to discuss what are the functions of leaders or leaderships. So first one is we should provide the team with the vision of project objectives, so that they should clearly uh, give what is the project objective. Suppose if they are working in a group, as a leader they should convey the message to his teammates. So what is the project objective, right? What is the objective of the project, or what we have to do, what is the aim of the project? So everything they have to explain it clearly. Second, they have to motivate and inspire the team members. That is what one of the function of leader. And third one is the leader also functions as a planner. So that is he decides the different ways and means that are to be adopted to achieve the objectives of the group. Then fourth one is the leader has to coordinate the activities of the group. So the leader does not carry out work or activities himself, but he has to assign to the group members and ensures that they are implemented. Next one is all incoming and outgoing communications are channeled through the leader. That is, the members of the groups deal with the leader as a representative of the particular group. Then apart from this, there are certain functions of leaders or leadership. That is, the leader controls the internal relations among the members of the group. So he tries to establish good relations among the group members. Seventh one is a leader rewards members who contribute. That is what, in terms of cash rewards or appreciation in public, promotions, etc., and work towards the attainment of the group goals. And they should punish those who obstruct the group progress. That is what, in the form of scolding, taking away the responsibility assigned, penalties, etc. And next one is leader must resolve disputes in a fair manner. So he tries to establish good intergroup communication, reduce tensions in the group, and they should establish harmony. Then the leader serve as a role model to the members of the group. So he must serve as an example for others to follow and set high standards. So next we are going to discuss what are the characteristics of team and group, or what are the comparison of team and a group. So before this, we are going to define what we mean by team and team building. So basically, a team is simply a group of people working together for the accomplishment of a common goal or objective. Team building means the action or process of causing a group of people to work together effectively as a team, especially by means of activities and events designed to increase motivation and promote cooperation. sorry. So now let us differentiate the team and group. Even though both look similar, the word team and groups, but there is what a slight difference between the word team and group. Uh, I have quoted some of the differences here. I have made two columns, groups and teams. In the first column, I written the members work independently, and they often are not working towards the same goal. So that is in case of groups. In case of team, members work interdependently and work towards both personal and team goals, and they understand these goals are accomplished best by mutual support. And second one is the members focus mostly on themselves because they're not involved in the planning of their group's objectives and goals. But in case of team, so members feel a sense of ownership towards their role in the group because they committed themselves to goals they help to create. Then third one is under the group, members are given their task or told what their duty or job is, and suggestions are rarely welcomed. But in case of team, members collaborate and use their talent and experience to contribute to the success of the team objectives. Then, in case of group, fourth column, members may not fully understand what is taking place in their group, but in case of teams, members base their success on trust and encourage all members to express their opinions, varying views, and questions. And the last point is members may or may not participate in group discussion or group decision making, and conformity is valued more than positive results. But in case of teams, members participate equally in decision making, but each member understands that the leader might need to make the final decision if the team cannot reach consensus. So next, we are going to discuss what do you mean by management and the Henry Fayol's principles of management. So management is basically defined as an art of getting work done through people with the satisfaction for employees, employer, and customers. Then let us discuss the Henry Fayol's principles of management. So the person Henry Fayol is the economist. He has developed 14 most important principles of management. So these principles clearly explain how managers should organize and interact with staff. So the Fayol's principles are listed below. The first one is the division of work. So as we know, the division work means what? Uh, Employees are specialized in different areas and they have different skills. So work should be divided among individuals and groups, which can increase efficiency of the workplace and increase productivity. So as per the first rule, so what he has told, so we have to divide the work and we have to assign the work individually, because each person they have what they have different skill, they have some creative thinking. So based on that we have to assign the work so that we can increase the efficiency as well as the productivity. So that is the first rule he has given. Second one is authority. So managers must have the authority to give orders, but they must also keep in mind that with authority comes responsibility. And third one is discipline. So the individuals working in the organization must be well disciplined. So the discipline refers to obedience, behavior, respect shown by the employees towards them. And fourth one is unity of command. So according to this principle, an individual in the organization must receive orders from only one supervisor. If the individual receives orders from more than one supervisor, then there may be more conflicts with respect to whose instructions to be followed. So that is what unity of command. Then unity of direction. It means all the individuals or groups performing different kinds of tasks must be directed towards the common objective of the organization. And sixth one is subordination of individual interest. So that is the interest of one person should not take priority over the interest of the organization as a whole. And seventh one is remuneration. So the payment methods should be fair enough such that both the employees and the employers are satisfied. Then eighth one is centralization. So this principle refers to how close employees are to the decision making process. So it is important to aim for an appropriate balance. And ninth one is scalar chain. So employers should be aware of where they stand in the organization hierarchy. And tenth one is order. So the workplace facilities must be clean, tidy and safe for employees. And 11th one is equity. So managers should be fair to staff at all times, both maintaining discipline as necessary and acting with kindness where appropriate. Then stability of tenure of personnel. So this means the management strives to maintain employees turnover and to have right staff in right place. And 13 one is initiative. So with this principle, employees should be allowed to express new ideas. This encourages interest and involvement and creates added value for the company. Last one is esprit de corps, that is team spirit. So organizations should strive to promote team spirit and unity. Next, we are going to discuss the different functions of management. The management can be applied to all the levels of organizations. There are basically the five main functions of management, that is planning, organizing, staffing, coordinating and controlling. So we are going to discuss one by one. So what do you mean by all this? The first one is planning. So planning in the sense what? The planning basically involves uh, it controls all the planning that allows the organization to run smoothly. So planning involves defining the goal and determining the most effective course of action needed to reach that goal. And planning also involves knowledge of the company's resources and the future objectives of the business. Second one is organizing. So the organizing function of leadership, it controls the overall structure of the company. So the organizational structure is the foundation of the company. Without this structure, the day-to-day operation of the business becomes difficult and unsuccessful. Even the organization involves designing tasks and responsibilities to employees with the specific skill sets needed to complete the task. And third one is staffing. So the staffing function of management controls all recruitment and personal needs of the organization. So the main purpose of staffing is to hire the right people for the right jobs to achieve the objectives of the organization. So staffing also involves training and development, performance appraisals, promotions and transfers. And fourth one is coordinating. The coordination function of leadership controls all the organizing, planning and staffing activities of the company and ensures all activities function together for the good of the organization. Then coordination typically takes place in a meeting and other planning sessions with the department heads of the company to ensure all departments are on the same page in terms of objectives and goal. Then coordinating involves communication, supervision and direction of management. And last one is controlling. So the controlling function of management is useful for ensuring all other functions of the organization are in place and are operating successfully. So controlling involves establishing performance standards and monitoring the output of employees to ensure each employee's performance meets those standards. Next, we are going to discuss what are the managerial qualities or the qualities of a manager. So a good manager must possess the following qualities. That is, he should have high intelligence level than the average man. Then he should have the capacity to put his ideas across and should be quite vocal. Means he must be talkative. And third one, he should be able to withstand criticism in the sense TK. Then fourth one is, manager should possess the ability to think broadly. Then he must have a wider general knowledge base than his subordinates. So apart from this, there are so many other qualities of manager. That is, a manager should have the quality of self-confidence and the sense of object. Then the manager should be emotionally stable and confident person. So manager should be aggressive and should be frank to say I don't know. Then a manager should not lose patience when things are not moving the way he wants it. Then a manager may have to sacrifice his family life by putting long working hours. So the manager should be a good salesman, selling a plan if action is a vital part. Then a manager should be a good mixture of workers and work and should treat organization success as his success. The manager should possess organizational ability, and the manager should like meeting people and like to be the member of the group. And manager pursue clearly the objectives in the actual environment and arrange them in the order of merit. Manager should implement various techniques to achieve the desired objectives. A manager should possess a skill in human relations and insight into human motivation behavior. And finally, so manager should be a good leader of his work group. So these are what some of the qualities a manager should have. Next, we are going to discuss what is the difference between private, public, and government sector. So, as we know, there are so many sectors like private, public, and government sector. Basically, private sector. First, I'm going to discuss some of the points in the private sector. So, the private sector is owned and managed by the private individuals and corporations. Means they are run by a private person or individual or a group of person. So the aim of the private sector is to earn the maximum profit. So always they are looking to earn the maximum profit. And the private sector companies government interference, as the organization they are owned by uh, private individuals. So there is what the less government interference in private sector. The employees of the private sector does not have the security of the jobs along with other benefits like allowances, gratuity, pension. As with the public or government sector, the employees as they enjoy a maximum benefit in case of public and government sector, but in case of private sector, so they cannot enjoy the maximum benefit. And third one, next one is, in the private sector, working environment is quite competitive, right? We find many people every year, a new employee is going to join. There will be more competition in the private sector. And in private sector, the performance of the employee is considered to promote them. So if you do well, if you perform well, then only they are going to promote in case of private sector. So nowadays private sector is progressing faster because it promotes quality not quantity, and it encourages talent. So in private sector your job is never secure, so that is the main point. So they can terminate you at any time. So even if you work there for years, so it can be, they can be fired anytime just because of a single mistake. In case of private sector, the workload is more and it keeps you active. So this is what the points in the private sector. And in case of a public sector, so public sector is part of the country's economy, where the control and maintenance are in the hands of the government. So they are what completely, it is not owned by any private organizations or private individuals. So the maintenance and control is done by the government. That is in case of a public sector. So the aim of the public sector is to serve the people. So in case of public sector, the government has full control over the organization. So the employees of the public sector have the security of the jobs along with other benefits like allowances, gratuity, pension, etc. So in the public sector, working environment is not competitive. So, right, once the employee get selected into the public or government sector, so their job is permanent and there is no competition, and the public sector uses seniority for promoting employees. However, merit cum seniority is also taken as a base for promoting employees. So next point is public sector is full of reservations like reservations for minority section, females, a person with a disability, and much more. Here nobody sees a talent, right? Then public sector enterprise gives so many facilities to their employees which make them satisfied that their job is secure, due to which all the people are running after it like a marathon. And in public sector the workload is less. The public sector is full of corruption. You have to pay lots of money to the government officers even for a simple work for no reason. And third comes government sector. So the government sector employees are under the government directly in state and the central. So their salaries are determined by the government and differs from private sector and public sector. So these employees have benefits like PF, provident fund, medical reimbursement, bonus and pension after retirement. The general government sector is divided into four subsections, that is central government, state government, local government and social security funds. So some of the examples of public sector is railways department, post and telegraph, right? BEL, Bharat Electronics Limited, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL, HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So all these are what they comes under the public sector. So the same differences I quoted here in short, that is what is private sector and what is public sector. And the last point in the subject is so we have one more, that is the managerial skills applicable to private, public and a government sector. So the management skills or the managerial skills are the necessary skills that are to be acquired by a successful manager. So the manager skills can be divided into three categories or three groups, that is technical skills, conceptual skills and human relation skills. So let us discuss one by one. So technical skill, it suggests what subject expertise and proficiency in handling various manufacturing processes and production methods and techniques and tools as required for executing his or her job in the organization. So in short, this indicate what uh, the managerial skills required in case of private, public or government sector. uh, that is what a person must be good in technical skill, right? Should know in thorough about the technical skill. And second one is conceptual skill. So they are again divided into two types here. The conceptual skills are decision making skills and organizational skills. So decision making skill is the ability of a person to make timely and accurate decisions. The organizational skills is the ability to select and post different people to various works best suiting to their needs and skills. And third one is human relation skills. So basically the human relation skills is the ability of a manager to work effectively with subordinates and colleagues and thereby build cooperation in his team so as to achieve organizational goals. The human relation skills suggest the managers to acquire communication skills, motivational skills and leadership skills. To conclude, all government, private and public sectors, all these three management skills are required for managers to execute their managerial activities. So it is observed that technical skills requirement is more for lower level or management, whereas conceptual skills requirement is more for top level management, and human relation skill is required is always necessary for manager of low, middle and top level management, as applicable to all the three sectors, that is private, public and government sector. And lastly, we are going to discuss what do you mean by intergroup communication. So let us discuss what do you mean by intergroup communication. The intergroup communication is a form of interpersonal interactive communication within an organization across different work groups and teams. So nowadays, since the organizations become larger and more complex, so there then peer to peer, so that is interactive communication, is required to make a coordinated cross functional effort in achieving organizational goals. So therefore intergroup communication, it symbolizes a form of interpersonal interactive communication among different team members of project groups, development teams, testing teams and various work groups at the same level, that is persons of relatively equal status across the teams on the same level of an organization talks together and exchange their views, opinions and suggestions. So the intergroup communication offers the following benefits, that is the task coordination, that is through discussion among different groups. Second one is information sharing across the departments. Third one is conflict resolution across the departments, and problem solving through how to handle threats, shortcomings etc. by way of group discussion. So this is the last point in the first chapter, management skills. Thank you.